Hello, everyone. This is the Creative Mind Podcast. I'm the host, Janet Nelson, and this is my guest. Who are you?
I'm
Heather Wolfe. So, Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself, your kids, and that kind of thing, and then we'll dig in.
I am a mom of 3. We got 20 years old, 17, and 15. I've been a wife to Michael for 17 years. We've been together for 20. I work and
So, what do you do for work?
I process referrals for a home health company, and we help people in our community feel better
That's fabulous.
in their home.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. Heather really helped me when Matthias, I was trying to learn how he thinks, and she was key in helping me figure that out. So I wanted to have her on to help us understand more about this process. What we've been learning is now the educational community is talking about the sensory spectrum because there's so many ways that our senses are used to learn. But it's fascinating to watch as we try to figure this out. And how do you teach a whole classroom of people when we think so differently?
Yeah.
But you look at all the jobs out there, one brain wouldn't work to get everything done. So there's a place for us all. It's just a matter of figuring it out. So one of the things I ask you as when you found out about your own learning style, what did that help you?
It relieved a lot of pressure because I realized how my brain worked, and it eased a lot of questions that I had, and it created patience in myself and allowing myself to maybe create some extra time when I needed it, or figure out where details needed to go, or just understanding myself.
How that help you with your girls who are also on that sensory spectrum?
It created patience in learning how they learned. I've been able to ask them how they think and see a solution or a problem, and I show them how I think of it, and we can come together in the middle. Sometimes it creates frustration, but most of the time it's patience with each other. And I learned that through learning patience with myself.
That's huge.
Yeah.
As parents, we're learning how to do this. And
Yes.
my brain thinks so differently than Matthias that at one point somebody said it's like Laurel and Hardy, going back and forth,
Yep.
But learning how to communicate, learn how to understand each other. And it makes a big difference when you realize, oh, that's how I think.
Very big difference.
Your grandma also said that she thinks like you do.
That created a comfort in me. I found out very later in life, but it created a comfort knowing that I wasn't alone, and that she understood the way I understood things, and that reading doesn't always have to happen.
So let's dive into reading, because that was one of the first things we talked about, is how difficult just reading a paragraph is.
Yeah, it's being able to pull details out of something and answer a question is not something that my brain can do. Reading is just reading the words on a page. I get nothing from it, and it's not interesting to me. And over the years, many times I've tried it, and it just never works the way it should. Created a struggle in school sometimes, because sometimes, you study material trying to get that to work and process, and it doesn't go in, and it doesn't stay there like it should when you're reading something. But I have found ways around it, in timelines.
Okay, tell me about your timelines.
Timelines have a start and a finish, and they fill in a lot of details in between in short bursts. They help me keep my details straight. They help me keep my facts straight, and they help me to solidify repetitiveness if I need it. They help me to solidify tasks that need to get done, and they help me fill in all the little added details that need to flow through certain program problems or studying times.
When did you learn about timelines working for you?
High school, and history, because I could have a start and an end in a history time, and I could put in details in a timeline. And then I found out that to-do lists can kind of work like a timeline. And if I keep an organized list and fill in details on my start to end timelines, I become pretty successful.
I was just talking about it to a decorator who people always say that she's anal because she has to be that specific.
Mhm.
She had books, a library of materials, kind of books, kind of things that she pulled from, but she knew where they were, but they had to go back to the same place so she could find them. And she, the whole works.
Yeah.
That's how she ran her whole business of decorating houses. So it's again that choice to have everything in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. On the other hand, when they're younger, they don't have that. That takes discipline.
Yes.
It takes the choice to do that, even when the brain doesn't always necessarily want to do it. Okay. Without your timelines, what does your brain do?
It's scattered. It's not focused. It's not productive.
No, I get it. So when they're younger, often that's what happens. They're not trying not to do things. It's just that scattered where they are. And most brains, I have found, that aren't focused, if you're kinetic and you're not up moving or doing something, your brain's not doing anything. And so it doesn't want to sit.
Right.
And in this case, I might be sitting there, but my brain doesn't know what to do. And so my thoughts are scattered because my brain doesn't know what to do.
Right.
Or where to go. Yeah. So having that patience, well, you figure out, okay, I can make my brain do certain things if I do these and these, this and this. In your case, a timeline.
Yes.
Matthias, on the other hand, he looks at timeline and he wants to know what the endpoint is, and all the middle stuff.
Yep.
Doesn't mean anything until he gets the endpoint,
Yeah.
and then he can go back and do all the little things. So timeline doesn't necessarily make sense to his brain, except that it is a picture. And so we've used timelines, but once in a while, if I hand it to him by himself,
Yep.
he struggles.
Yeah.
If I take it in parts to do it with him, kind of thing, then it can make sense and it stays with him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how a timeline works in my brain. Like if I have a start point and an end point at whatever task we're doing, there's going to be a start and there's going to be an end, even if it's open-ended a little bit. You take those timelines and you do short bursts. So like taking it back to the history, you take it 2 decades. In this decade, you still had a start and a finish. And maybe you're studying 100 years. You still have 10 decades within those 100 years. So you break it down. And then you have your details in those 10 years. And if you don't focus on this end part, your timeline's going to get to that end part in these smaller sections, so you're more successful.
Matthias is learning that.
Yeah.
He's in process. He's 18 and he's still figuring this out. Remember, this is sequential learning.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the difference between the non-sequential brain and a sequential brain. They have to function in a very sequential world.
Yes.
So they have to train their brain. How can I make it work
Mhm.
here in this process?
Mhm.
That's hard.
It is hard. It's stressful sometimes. But once you learn to give yourself patience and um, more time to process, just slowing down to understand how you work is important.
Mhm.
Getting a teenager to try to slow down is hard sometimes because they just want to go and they want to know it and they know it all already.
Mm.
That's the era that teenagers get into sometimes. I went through it, I know it all. But once you start realizing that you have to learn things about yourself to be successful in the world, you start putting more and more practice into learning about yourself.
Mhm. Um, and one of the things parents need to know, they sometimes need to find out the hard way. The
Yeah.
failure, that F is
Mhm.
okay
Mhm.
as long as they learn from it.
Yes.
It's when they get stuck there
Mhm.
that you have the problem.
Yeah.
And Matthias has experienced that, but he looks back and he now goes, but I learned a lot about myself during that time,
Mhm.
which is huge.
Yeah.
And now he's having to go, okay, how do I do this? And he's asking those questions of himself
Mhm.
to be successful.
Taking that time
Mhm.
to learn himself so he can be successful. It's going to happen in those small increments. So maybe eventually he's not going to focus on the whole big picture,
Mhm.
but he can break it up.
Right.
Because once you learn that you can break it up in this world, you can take the time to invest in yourself.
Mhm.
You're pretty successful after that.
Exactly. At college, understand in the Native American world, often their kids don't immediately go out into the world at 18 because they're honestly not ready.
Yeah.
They just aren't. And so they're still trying to figure themselves out. They're non sequential,
Mhm.
and trying to figure out these pieces.
Mhm.
So Matthias is going into college, and we're talking to him about how do you break up one of those syllabuses into something that he could do
Yeah.
without getting overwhelmed with, oh, I have all this stuff to do.
Mhm.
And wait a minute, it's just a week at a time. So they have tutors, or Heather's offered to help to just break it down. What do I need to do this week?
Mhm.
What do I need to do this? And sometimes you have to break it down to a day.
Yes.
For Matthias, he's going, I just have to find out what do I need to do today.
Yeah.
And sometimes emotionally, that's all they can do. And that's okay.
Mhm. You have to give yourself grace for those days
Mhm.
because being in school, so I use a planner as a timeline. I write out my week, but I don't focus on this week. I do take it day by day. I write down, okay, this assignment should take me this long. This assignment last time was really easy, so I shouldn't have any struggles with it. So this should only take me 15 minutes. This will allow for the one that I am struggling. So once you get into that flow of learning what assignments are what and how this is going to work for you, you can break your day down by minutes
Mhm.
because I have to do schoolwork after work. Sometimes I get, lunch periods where I can focus on it, but um, I only have a 5 hour window before I need to go to bed and actually go to sleep um, and rest for my day. But I have to break it down into minutes sometimes because the homework might get overwhelming. Or if I'm not understanding something, I have to allow myself some time. So I have to figure out where. So I really can't pay attention to what's over here and invest in my time or invest my time in what I need to do to get this be
Mhm.
successful in this part. Because I know if I'm successful here, my end of the day, end of the week will be okay.
Mhm. Do you still need those breaks sometimes for your brain?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the brain just needs time to process what's already taken in.
Mm-hmm. I have to do that at work. I have to have brain breaks at work. 20-minute brain. Like you work for 30 minutes, you give yourself a 5-minute brain break because you've done so much in that 30 minutes. Whether it was I'm trying to process a referral and I have 4 phone calls come in and that added to my to-do list over here, but I've got to go back to this so I can get this detail done and then add these details in. So I need to allow brain breaks. Even if I set timers for 30 minutes, give myself 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 10, 30, 10, 30, 10. It's essential for our processing.
Okay. That's huge in
Mhm.
understanding how brain works.
Mhm.
Okay. So we've been talked about how your brain processes. We talked about being non-sequential. So our next topic is scenes, pictures, analogies, and associations. Your favorites associations.
It is. I like associating a problem that's happening with maybe something I've seen or a movie I watched or a song. Associating can just make things stick better sometimes.
Mhm. My favorite one that you gave me was the science one, was the conch shell
Mhm.
representing the inner ear.
Yeah, when we were learning about the body and the inner ear, science has always been a struggle. I've always been a C student in science. I'm in a field that I have a lot of science, but um, just having that association with a conch shell, learning about the ear, and then I can associate it with learning by creating a space of only being able to hold so much information.
Mm.
In that little space, allowing yourself to fill that space with what you can know, or the inner ear, like hearing the ocean, but only in that small space.
Mm.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I love that. So we have been talking about at school, Matthias was asked to do a science project.
Mhm.
So he was supposed to make this car fly with this other guy. And so they were supposed to make something that twirled and then check it out, see if it worked.
Mhm.
And then decide why another configuration would work better.
Right.
And then try again. And then they did it like 3 times. But that's sequential learning.
Yes.
And the teacher finally basically said, if you can get this done, then I'll pass you. You know?
Yeah.
Because they were struggling with it. So what would be another way to teach that understanding?
Just allowing kids to trial and error, because that's a lot of sciences anyway, trial and error, right? So you get, letting them pick things that they can think. My brain went straight to a pinwheel because it spins. You need something that spins to help something fly. Then it was brought up helicopter, but in my brain, I went to, we got to figure out what we can make it to do to spin. Well, then that would create trial and error. Will this be strong enough to lift something to spin it or to make it fly? Pinwheels obviously aren't sturdy enough, but then pinwheels can lead to the same, what's it called? Concept as a helicopter, because it also spins that way. And so if it's sitting on top of the car, you're going to get that circular motion.
Mhm. It feels a little sequential, but if you listen to it, it really isn't. She's seeing, okay, how does that do it? Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of, okay, this won't work because of
Yeah.
thinking. Mm-mm.
No, you just got to trial and error things.
Yeah.
All the time.
Mhm.
In every aspect of life, not even just in science. It's just we have to trial and error things so we can learn how our brain's going to properly store that or
Okay.
keep that or learn that.
That's good. Okay. So your brain does the scroll of pictures. But you have to stop it sometime to do what?
Focus.
To focus.
To fully understand what part of that is scrolling. To fully understand that one picture and why that's an important detail in your timeline.
Mm.
Because if you're thinking about timelines and you're scrolling through all this information, you've got to pick the one to add the detail to your timeline to
Okay.
keep it moving.
That's cool. So that's part of the memory. Okay. And you said something about repetitive.
Yes, being repetitive. In my job, I was able to learn it so well because I do it every day. The process never changes. The details change, the process doesn't. Along with what I'm learning in medical coding, the details change, the process doesn't. I have a case study that I have to study and I have to find the code to apply to that case study, but each person is different. So that's how I associate medical coding with each person can have a different story with information, get through that timeline and those details to find out which code is going to apply to their story.
Wow. Love it. So, but you love flashcards?
Yes, because they completely they put it in my brain. The physical part of writing it out, the writing the definition, my husband showing me the flashcards. That's how I study the best because I repeatedly process that information in my brain. So that way I can get the answers out properly. And sometimes I can even remember my definitions word for word.
But you also really like writing.
Yes, it's kind of like a physical sensory where it provides that ingrainment in my brain.
I comprehend. So when do you doodle?
When I'm being told a story, or if there's a time we're at church and pastor might be preaching on a story where it's not really noteworthy. But I want to learn. I have a coloring Bible and I color in my Bible while I'm listening. So that way it sticks in there.
It gives you focus.
Yeah. Keeps me focused like music. If I have music playing, I'm able to, I can dial in.
Yeah. If you like jazz, instrumental jazz,
Yes.
that really dials you in.
Yes, it keeps me, it's literally called focus jazz and it calms my brain. So where I can focus on the details I have.
That's
And the
huge.
tasks, yeah.
But for a lot of learning, and this goes back to what we're going to be talking about of you're so sensitive to the physical, spiritual, and emotional environment around you. And music brings that motion in.
Yeah, music's a big part of my life. I use it in every aspect of my life. If I'm sad, I listen to music. If I'm happy, I dance and we listen to music. If I feel pulled away from God, my worship music is my favorite. It's my home. It's my comfort. It's my everything. A lot of people would say that reading the word, that's what they get that from. I get that from worship music. That's where I feel closest to the Lord. And music's everything to me.
Yeah. So you were talking about how sensitive you are to people. Without giving your name, can you tell us the story of how connected you are?
I had a beautiful human walk into my life unexpectedly. And she reminds me a lot of my mom. And she loves me unconditionally. And it did not take very long for that to happen. She's one of my best friends now. And it happened in a very short time, but we are so connected that I can feel when she's off and she can feel when I'm off. It's very mutual. I was in my kitchen one night and I verbally out loud said, "What's wrong?" And I used her name. My husband said, "She's not even here. What do you mean?" And it took me 3 minutes to finish what I was doing and get to my phone. And I asked her, "What's wrong?" because I verbally said out loud what's wrong. And she was going through a rough time. And I felt that we weren't texting, we weren't nothing. Like I just felt that. And I felt it with every part of my being. And it feels like an overflooding of love that needs to be outpoured to somebody in my inner self.
Mhm. So just walking downtown, you can feel the heaviness.
Yeah. I feel heaviness of the physical world. It's saddening to see what's happening. Seeing people struggle like creates a physical heaviness on my shoulders, making me feel sad for them, wanting to be able to help, knowing I'm not going to be able to do much. Other than I just pray for everyone.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a beautiful gift.
Yes, it is.
You're also a creative party planner.
Yes, I am. I can't draw to save my life unless somebody tells me how to do it, but I can put some pretty good parties together. I do like that. It's fun.
Yeah, she did a party for Matthias' graduation and decorations and all kinds of things. She made a poster board and it was just awesome.
Yes. I love putting little collages together of people's past and present, and it just showing how that timeline ties in all those little details. How did you get from this cute little baby to this grown person who is going to do amazing things in the world? I'm getting ready to do it for my own kid now.
Oh my gosh.
Did it for one, now I can do it for the next.
I know. We share boys. What can I do?
Yep.
Yes. So very, very, very special. I hope this blesses you. Each brain is so unique, but patience, getting to know your child. And they have, as they're figuring themselves out, as just asking those questions help them figure themselves out, giving them space to figure themselves out is huge. For us to even know what the questions are to ask.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah.
But one of the things that have come out in this process is letting them figure it out, letting them fail, letting them win. It's okay to have the process, even when our heart's gonna go, I really don't want you to go through that.
Yeah.
They still need to go through the process to know what they're good at and what they're not.
Yeah. And staying supportive.
And staying supportive. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.